We are providing our people with the tools and the knowledge and the learning experiences so that they can engage effectively in building a democracy in South Sudan. The objective was to empower a citizen and build a nation in which all of us could be proud of, a nation that we could call home. Well, those of you who are joining us, you are welcome. Today, the topic we are going to talk about is Tim Edwards' book called A Bloody Nile. This book has been around since 2016, and many of us have had a copy, but I don't think people have actually read it and really see what is going on inside that book. And it is important that we do read. We have to develop a culture of reading. Reading is a way in which we can obtain knowledge. And basically the objective of the book is to explain how South Sudan imploded just 2 years after independence. The book is published by Bullseye Publishing Corporation, and it was released. It was intended to be released simultaneously in New York, London, California, Oslo, Johannesburg, South Africa, Sydney, Australia, Toronto, Canada, Nairobi, Kenya, and Cairo, Egypt. This was supposed to be available in the British libraries, but obviously the book was never published. And the reason why the book was never published, allegedly, the president managed to buy the copyrights of the book. And the intention was essentially to hide the information that is inside that book so that people of South Sudan will not have an opportunity to really know what has happened and what he has done in this country. So the book was never published. The book, if you search it online, you will not be able to find a copy online. But somehow, through the grace of God Almighty, we managed to get our hands on the book. And since we got our hand on the book, we felt that this was such an important information, and it must be shared. It must be shared with the people of South Sudan. First of all, I want to make clear that the book, what is written in the book, this is not my personal information. So I'm not the person who is alleging the things that are inside the book. It's Tim Edwards. There is an author. So it's not up to me to vouch for the veracity of the information that is inside the book. I am simply sharing something that is published. If there are people, especially Matograp of Salva Kiir Mayardit, who want to pretend that what is there in the book is not the correct information, well, they can take it up with Tim Edwards or the Bull Eyes publication, and then they can raise the issue with them. That is none of our business. And they also have a right to write their own book and tell us their own version of the facts, right? But we know the facts, and what is in the book, we are going to be sharing it. So the book, there is the table of content. It has about 20 chapters. 20 chapters. I'll just go through these chapters. The first chapter is what they call the plan. Right? This is the plan, the final solution. And this plan really is the plan of how the war was created, deliberately engineered as a way of entrenching Salva Kiir in power. Right? This war was deliberately created by a number of security and political officials from Salva Kiir home yard. These are his diehards. You remember back in the 1991, we had a split in the SPLA. And when the split happened into two. We had the mainstream faction of the SPLM that was headed by Dr. John Garang de Mabur, which remained as the Torit faction, right? That was one of the factions. And then there was the Nasser faction. That was the faction that was led by Dr. Riek Machar and Dr. Lama Akol and those of Gurun Kong. Those were the two factions. And then we went through a war fighting each other until 2002, when Riek Machar returned back to the SPLA. So the SPLA was now reunited. And then Lama Akol returned in 2003, the SPLM was reunited. But still, there was that lingering that there has been divisions, there has been hurt, people have been killed, there was all the terrible things that had happened. And then you remember in 2004, and we spoke about this, especially with Salva Kiir having grievances, complaining that he was being marginalized, that he was not being consulted, that he was not being used. And this was deliberately because he had refused to go to school and to learn and to upgrade his capacity. And as SPLM was becoming more and more complex, he was essentially useless in terms of contributing anything useful to the running of the movement. When he was sent for the negotiation for the Machacos, he basically went and hang out in the hotel, enjoying himself with whiskey and ladies. And then Nyal Deng and the rest of them had to go and actually negotiate what became the Machacos Protocol. So he was essentially useless to the movement. But then Garang was thinking about possibly removing him and replacing him with Nyal Deng Nyal, because he probably realized that this man was hopelessly incompetent, and he was probably going to run the country to the ground if he ever had a chance of becoming the leader, right? So then there was the rumors of him being removed. But then now Salva Kiir twisted John Garang and started mobilizing people on the regional ground, mobilizing the people of Barghazal, arguing that the Barghazal people were being targeted, and that, Barghazal people have died and blah, blah, and, created all these huge fiasco that almost led to another split. He barricaded himself in Ye, and he basically started thinking about massacring some of the IDPs, especially from Bor that were in Ye at the time. That led, of course, to a series of negotiation and mediation, and thanked people like Dr. Riek Machar. They managed, of course, to reconcile the two parties, and then people end up reconciling in Rumbek. But essentially what had happened is that although there was no bullets exchanged by this time, there was really a split. It's just that nobody spoke about it. So the Torit faction that had remained united, right, that faction had now split, although people were not talking about it. And the split was essentially two. There was now the Salva Kiir faction of Ye, right? You call it the Ye faction. That was one faction. And then there was the other faction that remained with John Garang, and call it the Rumbek faction. So essentially you had so now, if you were to look at the SPLM, especially in the year 2012 to 2013, there were really three factions. There was the original Nasser faction of Dr. Riek Machar, right? And Riek Machar was clearly criticizing Salva Kiir of his failures to run the country, to manage the economy, the issues of corruption, the issues of insecurity, issues of lack of direction in regard to foreign policy, right? So there were people organizing around Dr. Riek Machar. And then there was now the Ye faction of Kiir Mayadit, right? This is the one that was in power. And that faction was still running based on the, not just only tribalism or mobilizing the Dinka, which was obviously a fact, but even on top of mobilizing the Dinka, the real mode of mobilization was regionalism. It was still the same tactics that has been used in Ye in 2004, Barghazalism. That was the same thing that was now being used again, right? And then you had the Rumbek faction. This is the faction of the so-called Garang boys, right? This is John Garang's wife, those of Pagana Amum, those of Wiyai, the rest of them, those who have been close to Dr. John. This became the FDs. So this is just a simple summary. So this final solution was essentially the Ye faction idea of basically getting rid of the other two factions. And the idea was essentially to recruit a special army, Matianganyor, as you all know it, which was recruited mostly from the three states of Barghazal and primarily from Warab and Awil, and trained in Pantit by Jorob Malongawan exclusively. And then they were trained and recruited without the knowledge of the chief of Jorol staff, Jorol James Hotmai. And the idea was essentially to have a private militia, bring them in, and then use military power to break the back of both of these two movements. Destroy what they saw by then as a Nuer dominant in the SPLA, and target Riek Machar, possibly kill him. Those of Taban Dengai kill him. And then, of course, the politicians that had united and were supporting Riek, because you remember the December 6th press conference, essentially the Nasser faction and the Rumbek faction essentially joined forces and were now putting pressure on the Ye faction. So the idea was then now to use the military power, recruit these people from Barghazal, and the idea was essentially to kill these politicians, arrest some of these people, case closed. Salva Kiir remained entrenched in power, right? So that is the first chapter of the book. It goes through how that actually happened, how it was planned, who were involved. Kiir, those of Malongawan, those of Akolokur, A bunch of them, essentially, were involved in this thing. And the massacres that happened, how they were organized and how they were commanded, who was commanding which part of Juba. And they were going door to door to kill and massacre Nuer civilians, including, by the way, those who were even loyal to the government. As long as you were a Nuer in Juba, and all of you know, right, the Juba massacre, this is in history. We all watch this. We all know this. We went through it, right? People were massacred. People went door to door, killing men, old people, women, children. No one was spared, right? So that is the first chapter of the book, right? So it talks about the plan. Then the second chapter is the pogrom, the actual killing, the near genocide that was committed. So, and then it goes through different chapters of trying to explain what really went wrong. From the time John Garang died, Salva Kiir taking over, the ideology that came with Salva Kiir, and then how the SPLA itself was wrongly constituted to begin with, how it was disorganized, how it lacked an ideology. That is essentially the first part of the book. It gives you what went wrong, which is like they split in Juba, the massacres of the Nuer, and then it went back to kind of explain why that happened. Why did that actually happen? Door to door killing. And why within the SPLA there was all of this split. Basically the background that I just provided you. Now the other part of the book, you know, and this is the part that it gets a bit juicy, is now kind of tell us a little bit more about the person called Salva Kiir. How this group that is surrounded him, that came up with these ideas of these plans of how they can control power, how did these people get to control him? How did they get to be able to put him and make him do what they want, right? So you give us a picture of the man, who the man is, his moral compass, his lack of course, education and character, and you get a bit more detail practically on a day-to-day basis how Salva Kiir was controlled. Now, this is really important, and the reason it is important is relatives of Salva Kiir have been accusing me of attacking the character of the old man, that I have been attacking his character, right? They think that I'm the one that has been leaking the information about who Salva Kiir is and how he's actually been managing himself and his business, right? They forget that it is his own people that have been the one leaking all the information around him and how they have been controlling the man, right? These are the people, these own guys. This book, by the way, if you look at the detailed information that is provided there, it came from Salva Kiir bodyguards. It came from people directly in the office of the president. It came from his family, relatives, and most likely these people were paid to give the information out. Somebody bribed them, right? So they're stealing from Salva Kiir, and at the same time, when somebody offers them the money, they tell you everything that you need to know, right? So that is essentially how all this information has got out. And I really want to clarify today that it's not me who have been attacking the character of the Salva Kiir. It's not me who has been releasing information that is terrible about who Salva Kiir is as an individual. It is his own people. His own people are the one who have been doing that, right? So from today onwards, especially those of you who haven't read the book, read it, and you will realize that Peter Biar Ajak is innocent. It has nothing to do with all the terrible things that Salva Kiir has been doing. It's his own people that have been doing that, and they have been then leaking that information. So first, how do they control him? Number one, alcohol. Alcohol. They get the guy drunk, they make him drink a lot, and then when he is drunk, they make him sign whatever the hell they want him to be signed. Whether it is degrees, people to be fired, whether it is the release of funds, the money to be released, or whatever. Alcohol has always been the most effective tool that they use to control this man. People come around to J1, they hang out, people drink, people dance, people do whatever the hell they want to do. And then when they got the guy completely drunk, now they will say, the elephant has fallen, all right? Or the guy is cook. That is the phrase that Tim Edwards used in the book. The guy is cook. That is what they say. The guy is totally cooked. So now anything can be brought, it can be signed. That is a constant theme throughout the book. Constant theme throughout the book. And this book, by the way, as I said, it was first written in 2016. That was 6 years before I went on KTN and confirmed to the world that Kir Mayadit was drunk when he attended the funeral of Mwai Kibaki. 6 years before that, Tim Edwards had been writing that, and that information was available in the book. And then the people were attacking me. Yeah? That the guy, that I said the guy is drunk. The guy has been drunk throughout. You will find it throughout the book. There is a chapter there, especially if you want to read it. There is chapter 11 from page 42. Right? It says, being Salva Kiir. You know, being Salva Kiir. In that chapter, you go through it, you will know what it is like to be Salva Kiir day-to-day basis. That is the guy. So alcohol was always a useful tool that was used to control him. Those of Paul Malone, they use it. Those of Telar, they use it. Everybody that was around Salva Kiir, they used alcohol to control the man. Right? And that is how he became a drunkard, to the extent that he can't control himself anymore. Sometimes he drinks to the extent that he completely forgets what is going on. You know? And this is a reality, it's all recorded in the book. So anyone that wants to dispute this, you go and bring your own book or write something else, and then let's see what the evidence actually say. But it's not Peter Biar that has been saying that Kiir is drunk. It's his people, those of Long Body, those of Agutdau, those who are close, because the sources of information are there. If you read the book, you know what the source is. It's not coming from me. I was never there in J1. Huh? There are people that were always there, the ones that were drinking with him and getting him to sign things. And there are evidence. That is one. Second way that they control him is through the ladies, through women. In fact, Tim Edwards talks about what he called sexcapades. Sexcapades. These are basically short, brief interludes where Salva Kiir would be, some young girl would be brought for him. For example, there is one incident there in the book where a daughter of his own comrade, William Nguyen, all of you know William Nguyen, great man, God bless him. Without him, this movement called SPLA would have never got anywhere. But William Nguyen, after he had died, he sacrificed himself for the country. He died a hero. Now, this guy, his daughters, his children that have been orphaned, these are orphans. These are children of someone who is great. His daughter is brought to Salva Kiir, and then they go and tell him, they put him in his private room. You know, he's wearing all those nice things that the ladies put on. You know, the body has been lotioned, and there's, you know, the perfume, the smell is, you know, smelling really awesome. Then they now go to Kidit and they say, the food is ready. The food is ready. That is the phrase that is used in the book. The food is ready. The food is ready. This is daughter of William Nguyen. And then he will go. Now he will go. I understand now that somehow they have had kids with that lady, daughter of his own comrades. This is the kind of guy. He will go to church. You know, he goes to St. Teresa Catholic Church in Qatar. Some of you might have been blocked on the road on Sunday when he's going to church. According to Tim Edwards, this guy doesn't actually go there to pray. And you will understand in a little bit why. He goes there primarily to search out. So when he's there, his eye is just like loitering around, looking. And what is he looking for? He's looking for young ladies. Young ladies. In fact, there's a story of a certain Ugandan girl called Janet Magisha. Some of you may know her. She's probably a friend of yours on Facebook. Janet knew, she heard about these stories of Salva Kiir looking for young ladies at church. So she decided, she and a friend of hers, to come to the church, and now they sat in a particular place so that when the president comes, they will be seen. And then obviously his eyes came and he's looking and he saw them. And then he came and introduced himself. obviously, this is the president, Salva Kiir did. And then the lady is like, yeah, we are from Uganda. Yeah, we are relatives, nieces of President Yoweri Museveni. Oh, you became interested. Oh, President Museveni. Cool. He told the bodyguard to immediately have them be brought to him. This is constant throughout the book. In fact, it became a real problem for the priests in the church. You know, because the guy is going there, is doing all these terrible things in the church, is looking out for Sunday school girls, young, this must mostly probably underage, you know, looking for them. And then this became too much for the church to tolerate. And they had to basically talk about it. They have to talk about it. And the priest began, you know, preaching about morality, moral behaviors. And then he was upset. He was upset. He stopped going to the church. He stopped going to the church, right? So there are all these stories. In fact, it's one of the reasons why Agutdau, when he was the private secretary, was removed. Because he blocked certain girls that were supposed to be brought for the food that was supposed to be brought for the old man. And then he blocked them. And the old man was not pleased. He was not pleased that his food was blocked. So he got rid of Agutdau. And I guess that is probably how the information got out. And then it was leaked to the rest of us through Tim Edwards. Thank God for all of those leaks. We are grateful. Now we know exactly what is going on. Now, the terrible thing about all of these sexcapades of Salva Kiir in the book is the fact that the old man has been doing this while he knows that he has HIV/AIDS. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. He has been doing that, going after these young girls, having sex with them while he knows that he is infected by the virus. And the book is details when the guy was actually diagnosed. Huh? When the guy was diagnosed. The guy was diagnosed back in 2009 by a doctor called Yanga Barry Wanja. You know Barry Wanja. He came from WOW. He was a member of parliament. He was one of the ideologues of communism back in the days. The doctor diagnosed him. And of course, he was very upset that he was diagnosed, but he was told that nowadays this thing can be managed through drugs, and he can take the drugs, and he can protect himself. And this is why we said last time that this guy is sick, and he has so many sickness going on in his body. There's so many things that are inside him. And we have been saying that, and people have not been taking us seriously. Well, here is the book now. You can go and open the book, and you will find the guy has been sick for all this time. You know, we have been saying that. In fact, if you open the book, you will find this. There is a section called "What Afflicts Salva Kiir." What afflicts Salva Kiir? This is where you will find it. It's terrible. He was diagnosed and then taken to Karen Hospital. And they found the guy has this thing. That was back then, 2009. And imagine since then, how many ladies he has taken, how many concubines. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that if you have HIV/AIDS, that automatically when you sleep with somebody, someone is going to be infected. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but sometimes it happens. So this is the risk that he has been taking on these young girls, right? It is there in the book. It gives you a sense of this man, of who he is, his character, and why he has miserably failed in his leadership of South Sudan, right? So just to put that in mind, to put that in contact, is completely unbelievable. And one of the reasons what makes him to think of that and to do things like that is because the guy is hopelessly corrupt. He's a kleptomaniac. He can't help himself from stealing public money. This is what he has done. And this is what he has been doing. And this is what those around him keep on doing. Stealing of money. There is a funny story in the book about Salva Matongangdit. He wanted to siphon off $293 million cash Huh? So, and you want to take it outside to Uganda, and he can't figure out the best way to take the money out, because obviously if you fly, you can't go with all this cash. So he devised a plan to have a very big coffin of someone allegedly who have died, and then all the cash was put in the coffin, and some of his relatives were mobilized to now mourn and to go with the coffin by the road to Nimule. Now the funny thing is, at the border, one of the guys was like, usually South Sudanese die outside and then they are brought into the country to be buried. How is it that a guy that has died inside the country is being taken to Uganda to be buried? So, he smell a rat. That something here doesn't smell right. And he began to look in. And guess what he found? Cash. Cash. No dead person. Cash. The first time I heard of this story back in Juba, I was shocked. I was shocked about it. But that is it in the book. Right? And then, when someone is caught, the relatives will come to the president. They will come and sit down, talk with him, and then the guy is forgiven and reinstated. You go through the book, the details of how much corruption that has happened, the stealing of the money, the siphoning. You are talking about hundreds of millions, billions. In fact, the total number of money, the amount that was siphoned off during that short period is $4.9 billion. $4.9 billion. Just during that short time. From like the time of CPA in 2005 when Kiri takes over to the time now before the war broke out. This is in 2012. 4.9 billion. Just let that go through your head. That is what these people have been doing. And they have been using the good people of Baragazal as tools to be used to defend this thievery. This is our government being taken. They were using the Dinka, but then now the Dinka people were, no longer believing in that. So it was reduced locally to Baragazalism. This is the sad situation that we have been in. And the only conclusion that you get at the end of it is that this country has truly been orphaned. It did not have any leader. No single person in that is mentioned there that has been in the top leadership of the country is worthy of being called a leader. Completely, whatsoever. There is actually a story of John Garang coming at night to Salva Kiir in a dream and telling Salva, you have messed with the legacy, with our legacy as as liberators. You have messed with my legacy as John Garang as a person. Salva, my problem with you will never end. Even when you die, you come to the afterlife, I'm going to have problem with you. There was another time he had a dream. John Garang was choking him because John Garang was mad at him. And he thought he was going to die. In fact, you read the details in the book. He wakes up at night, is completely mad because the night before he has been completely drunk, right? He's been wasted. Then he had this terrible dream, and then now he wakes up, and then he orders his motorcade, and and he's not even wearing a shirt, just wearing like pajama pants. And they rush to John Garang Mausoleum, where he was just crying, and he was praying to Dr. John, to the spirit of Dr. John, to forgive him for how he has failed and all the terrible things he has done. And then he mobilized all the spear masters. The spear masters came all the way from wherever. All the Dinka spear masters were mobilized. Some came with chickens, with goats, with the snakes, with whatever. They all came to John Garang Mausoleum to come and make sacrifice and start talking all kind of gibberish, somehow to get the spirit of John Garang to quiet down. So the guy is with voodoo all the time, with juju, with witchcraft. Even now, Achaiwir, the innocent Achaiwir, is being accused as if she's the one that introduced this witchcraft. She probably learned it from Salva Kiir. This is the only way in which things are done. This is the only way things are done within the orbit of Salva Kiir, right? So all these witchcraft, all these juju, this is how one of the ways that Kiir is managed. So you have alcohol, you have young ladies, you have money, and then you have witchcraft. These are the tools that are used to control Kir Mayadit and to get him to run the country to the ground the way that he has done. This is the reality, folks. I know this is not the full summary of the book, but this will give you a gist of what is in the book. As I mentioned in my post, we are going to be going through it slowly. We're going to take time. We're going to take our time. We're going to go through it chapter by chapter over the next several weeks. We'll be going through it chapter by chapter. Yeah?